Hey guys, so today we will be digging further into this Onan P218G engine that I have. It ended up throwing a rod, so it's torn apart, and I've gotten the majority of it disassembled off camera. We've got intakes, all the shields, the muffler. Came out of a 316, and unfortunately it exploded due to an oil pump malfunction. So we're going to work on tearing into it, and then I guess most of the video is going to be instructions on how you can take better care of it, because this one was very low hours, but was abused, so it blew up. So today I'm going to mostly be teaching you what you can do to keep these engines running a long time and save yourself a lot of money. So one thing you can do to keep these engines running, and it's a very major thing, is you got to decarbon the heads every 200-ish hours. So down here I have the heads that came off of this P218, and as you can see, I did clean these up once, but during the use, of course, they've carboned up again. I didn't really do a great job at doing it because I knew the motor wouldn't last that much longer. But this is one of those things that you should maintain frequently, along with changing the head gaskets, because these Onans love to run very, very carbon heavy. So, just clean it out so that all that stuff doesn't kind of break off and then scratch and gouge your cylinder. Thankfully, this one is not gouged, but it could have been, right? So you got to be very careful when it comes to this stuff. Another thing that you can do is, well, obviously your typical maintenance, like adjust your valves and whatnot, but you can decarbon the valves as well. This one, obviously, was not taken care of very well. As you can see, you got pretty big, thick carbon deposits absolutely all over it. It's not a good sign. You typically do not want this, because it can cause a lot of unnecessary wear and damage to the valve seats, the valves, and just the engine in general. So that's one of those things you want to look out for and keep it relatively clean, because these Onans at high hours like to push out valve seats. So you do have to be very careful, or else you can take this beautiful big block and turn it into something that's good enough for a crusher. Another thing that you should frequently do on these old Onans is replace this gasket on each side, because this is a frequent spot that will leak oil right in the valve guide area. So typically you want to keep this nice and clean, or of course it'll leak and you'll just cause more undue wear because dirt will get in there, just ruin it. It's another one of those things that can ruin it. You also want to make sure that these, on all four sides, intake and exhaust, all the gaskets are perfect, because if they aren't, these Onans will not run right. These Onans really don't like to run unless they have a very clear mixture. So that's another thing you can do. And another thing that you can also focus on, which is also at this point just become typical maintenance with these Onan engines, is these here. These have gaskets in them. So typically you'd like to split this and then reseal it, because like me, with a lot of other people, these, when they have a leak in them, will not run right. Plain and simple, you will not have it running right. It will never run right unless you replace this gasket. So that's another thing you can replace. And then a thing that you should watch out on these engines is right here. I've already fixed this one. This is a Welch plug, and during the winter, those will pop out, and basically it'll gush air into your carburetor, and you will never run the correct mixture at all. So you can put JB Weld in it. You can buy a new carburetor, or you can just put another Welch plug in it. I went for the JB Weld fix, and it hasn't caused me any problems yet. Keep in mind, I didn't really get to do much with it before it kind of exploded. But I can assure you it was not because of that fix. It starved for oil and exploded, which is a very unfortunate thing. If you have a 316, 318, chances are on this shaft here, you will have this PTO. This is the electric PTO off of 316, 318, and this is something that you'll commonly find on most of the scrapyard Onins, because a lot of these Onins were put into these 316s and 318s. So typically you want to adjust this before you start running it, because it can cause issues. And then you want to always check the voltage. This one's been cut. But if you don't check the voltage and how it's working, this can cause you some severe issues. This can catch fire. It can cause a lot of undue damage to your machine. And that's just one of the things that can happen. Here's another thing you should check. A lot of Onin engines will run the wrong spark plug, and it will cause major damage. Lots of people put the wrong one in. For a Champion, if it'll focus, you want to run the RS14YC. If you don't run this, you risk causing issues, because some people will put one that's too big, too long in there, and then the top of it will end up hitting off the piston, pieces will get in there, ruin the engine. It's a big thing. I can't stress it enough. Always make sure you're running the right spark plugs, because if you aren't, well, you're going to just destroy it. Then, spark plug wires. Always check them. If there's any damage, withering, corrosion, you can either replace it or you can try and fix it. Do not try and duct tape it. You're just going to ruin it. Plain and simple. It's just going to cause damage. Another thing to check if you're running the 316 or 318 is the starter. If they go bad when the engine is in, basically you're going to have to tear the engine out. This engine will have to come completely out and be completely gone over, and then the starter will need to be done. So you can check the starter, but before you do so, if you're running a 316 or a 318, I seriously recommend putting in a starter improvement kit. It will seriously help you. You wouldn't believe how easier it makes it, and sometimes it's actually necessary. So always make sure you check those. Another thing to check is these are filters for your valve guide. Look at this. Gunk. Crud. This is because this engine exploded. But if it looks like this, you should seriously consider going through the engine and cleaning it, because obviously dirt's gotten in there and probably damaged some things. So that is something you should check. Again, I can't tell you exactly what you can do, but you should check it every once in a while just to make sure nothing's getting in. Obviously, more preventative maintenance is going through all the seals, gaskets, and bearings, because they like to leak oil. And when they leak oil, they like to catch fires. And when they like to catch fires, they like to burn your garage down. So that is something you should check, obviously. Because if you don't, it's going to get ruined. Okay, so I had to come outside for this one. Sorry, it is raining. I'll have to talk a bit louder. But this portion of the video is to show you stuff that you have to do if you own a 316, 318, 420, anything with an Onin in it that comes in this year in a similar frame. Because if you don't, obviously you're going to turn something into a Lego set and something's going to break. So, a lot of this here is going to be things that you can do to prevent either undue wear or overheating issues. So, around here is supposed to be firewall foam, and this helps keep a seal to the engine and keeps a vacuum. So if this, like this, is not here, if it's all, you know, decayed, like there's nothing left on this one needs to be replaced. But you should buy a firewall foam. I can't stress it. It's $70. But if you want to save yourself from having to rebuild the motor or putting a $2,000 Kohler command in it, you will replace this. Because if you don't, your engine's going to overheat or it's going to explode. One of the two, it's going to happen. Obviously, you should clean this out, make it nice and clean, because if you see any oil, you'd like to know if it was there before you fixed it or after. Then, another major cooling thing that you should do is check this grill. If this grill is not here, obviously, it is probably not worth picking up because it's probably overheated in the past. So I wouldn't touch it. So, obviously, that is another thing that you should not touch. And then, advice for anyone that's looking to purchase a 316 or a 318. This exhaust side panel will have the exhaust coming out right here. And if there's blackness on it, or any kind of crud, I wouldn't touch it, because that means that there has been some kind of engine troubles, or there is engine troubles. It's a major red flag. Always check it. Another thing you should check on the 316s and 318s are the U-joints on these drive shafts, because if they break, they cause serious damage. They can destroy your drive shaft, which are very expensive because they aren't made. They can damage the fins on the shroud. They can put a hole in the flywheel. They can do major damage because it's all next to your steering. It's all next to your major wiring. If it takes out this computer, you're done. Because you can't get them. You'd have to get it rewired, or you'd have to buy one from John Deere for an absurd price, and then it's not worth fixing. So always check these, because if you don't, you're going to end up regretting it. Again, I'm not trying to sound mean, but unless you really want to regret everything and ever buying a tractor, make sure these are in good condition. These ones are not. It's a good thing the motor broke, because this probably would have caused a lot of damage. Obviously, if your air filter looks like this, chances are the engine has probably been abused, because these are something you frequently want to replace. If they're dirty like this, absolutely replace it, because at that point your engine could be sucking in dirty junk and debris and just be causing major issues. And then on the 316s, always check if the wiring's hooked up right, because wiring in these can cause some big issues. There's a YouTuber on here that has had a 316 burn in his garage because of issues similar to that. So always check it, because if you don't, you will regret it. As a side note, I've decided, because the video is not long enough, I'm going to cover some preventative maintenance on the Kawasaki in the John Deere 130 and 160 and beyond. Obviously, you gotta make sure that it's pretty much the same as the 316. You just want to make sure you're running a clean air filter, your valves are in check, you got good spark, decarbon the head, good gaskets, and so forth. Always check it. Check your mufflers as well, because on these 130s, 160s, they can be rotten. As you can see, this one has rotted. So unless you want to be in for a very loud awakening when you first start it or something like that, I would check it, because it's always a good idea. Another thing is, on the Kawasaki's, these fuel pumps are nightmares. They always break. I don't like them. They suck. So check them. They can be replaced with cheap aftermarket ones, or you can get one from Kawasaki. It doesn't really matter. Just make sure that you get the right one. And then on the 316, side note, you can always check your transmission oil in the back. There's an hourglass. If it's not there when you're buying a tractor, I wouldn't buy it, because chances are somebody's messed with the transmission and it's broken. Or there's going to be a future issue with it that is going to cause you some major hassle. And then this paint, don't use it on these. It's the wrong type. There's actually two types of John Deere paint. There's a vintage one, which is this style, and then there's this style. As you can see, even just from the cans, this one is quite brighter. So always get the right paint, because if you don't, there are some people, some enthusiasts that will hound you about it. That is a guarantee. So there's another thing you should check. And then on this 130, another thing that you should always check on these is the fuses. These have a lot of fuses and a lot of safety switches. And this one has nearly caught fire twice because I neglected to check them. So always check them, because they will save you a world of hurt. That's just a guarantee. So check them. If they're blown, figure out why. If the battery's backwards because you're stupid and put it in backwards twice like I did, obviously just fix it. Because it doesn't cost you a lot of time to be safe, but it'll cost you a lot of money to be sorry. Okay, so unfortunately, we didn't do much disassembly and whatnot today. It's mostly just informational stuff, but I'm just clearing up some issues that some people might be having, and a lot of future issues that people will have if they don't heat it. Because I didn't heat it with this 316, and I paid the price for it. It exploded. I didn't pay attention. So, pay attention, or you will regret it. Plain and simple. So, there's my 130. There's my 316. And then, this is a 130 that somebody did not take care of. So, this is the nightmare it has became. So, this is a well taken care of 130. This is a 130 nobody took care of and is now disassembled in my shop. So this is what yours will become if you do not take care of it. It will be damaged, and it will take a lot of time and money and hours to fix it, especially for somebody like me, because if I have to fix it, then it becomes pricey, because I include my work. So you can keep your tractor running forever, just like this one, as long as you take care of it. Anyways, this is Chase from, obviously, this channel. So, I have to go and film some more videos and whatnot. I will see you guys in the next one. Please like, comment, and subscribe. It helps me out. And obviously, this isn't the best video on my channel. Please check out my other videos. I've got some pretty good ones. Alright, bye.